Here's the big picture. You're in a meeting. It's your turn to speak. You've done your research, you've listened to your colleagues, and now it's time to present your case. What high school course could have prepared you for this situation? The International Baccalaureate offers a diploma-level course that prepares students to meet this situation and other real-life events. It's called English Language and Literature. This presentation introduces you to this 2-year course and its 4 parts. In brief, it is a course in both non-fiction and it's a course in texts of fiction. You will aim to meet several objectives. At the heart of the course is critical literacy. Understanding how meaning is conveyed through different stylistic devices and structural conventions is very important to analyzing texts, and it's very important to this course. Next, we aim to develop good communication skills, self-expression, group interaction, and critical analysis. Finally, through these studies, you will develop a greater awareness of cultural values, since the meaning of a text is always dependent on its context. So, what does the average day in a language and literature classroom look like? You can analyze, compare, and contrast texts in many ways, from classroom discussions to scaffolding exercises. Scaffolding exercises build around pre-existing structures, such as writing from an existing essay outline, or taking on delegated roles in a debate. How is the English Language and Literature course assessed? There are several forms of assessment. Each will be explored separately in this presentation. In brief, all forms of assessment test one's knowledge and understanding of various texts, and one's ability to identify and understand the effects of stylistic devices. Students are expected to organize and develop ideas using the English language appropriately and accurately. Specifically, one form of assessment that runs throughout the course is called the written task. These creative writing assignments invite an exploration of form and content. You can demonstrate your understanding of character from a novel, for example, by writing a journal from the character's point of view. Or you can comment on the lyrics of a musician by writing an opinion column in a music magazine. Besides these creative writing assignments, higher-level students must also explore text through critical responses. This Written Task 2 assignment asks students to respond to a text in light of one of 6 prescribed questions. These questions are relevant to all texts and all parts of the course. A selection of all written tasks is sent to an examiner for assessment. Moving to Part 1, Language and Cultural Context. Students are invited to explore various types of texts by focusing on several topics. For example, a unit on the topic of language and power may include propaganda posters, political speeches, and advertisements taken from various times during the British Empire. Studying each text in their context lead to a greater understanding and appreciation of British culture. How is Part 1 assessed? Besides writing written tasks, student will also perform one or more further oral activities. Be it a speech, a debate, a talk show, or a sketch, students are expected to demonstrate their understanding of the text studied in class. These activities are assessed internally by the student's teacher or teachers. Similar to Part 1 is Part 2, Language and Mass Communication. As we continue to talk about particular cultures, we need to look at how public opinion is shaped through mass communication. Content-wise, this means focusing on the press, censorship, political campaigns, mobile media, and advertisements, to name a few. Theoretically, this means we discuss bias, sensationalism, persuasion, and manipulation. We look at the relationship between a text's message and the medium through which it is disseminated. Besides writing more written tasks and performing more further oral activities, students are also asked to sit a Paper 1 exam. Both Parts 1 and 2 help develop the skills to take this exam successfully. At standard level, students analyze 1 unseen text in 1.5 hours. At higher level, students compare and contrast 2 unseen texts in 2 hours. The paper is then sent to an external examiner. Now to the literary parts of the course. Part 3, Literature, Text and Context. This has a few reading requirements. students read one literary text from the IB's Prescribed Literature and Translation, or PLT, and a text of their school's choice. Higher level students also read a third text from the IB's Prescribed List of Authors. These literary texts should offer students a range of different literary genres. They may have been written in different time periods and places. They should be contextually rich and thematically linked. A text like Animal Farm by George Orwell would work really well for Part 3, because it's best understood in the context of the Cold War and the rise of communism. It could be connected to The Crucible by Arthur Miller, as both pieces are about power and accusation. One is a novella, the other is a play. It helps to use contextually rich works for Part 3 because of the nature of the exam, Paper 2. Students must answer one of 6 essay questions on the Paper 2 exam. These questions ask students to show their understanding of 2 or 3 literary texts in light of the context in which they were written. Questions are about the relationship between author, genre, style, structure, and time period. Again, standard level students will have 1.5 hours. Higher level students will have 2 hours to write an essay that will be externally assessed. Part 4 of the English Language and Literature course invites students to take a critical look at the mechanics of literary texts. For this part, students read works from the prescribed list of authors, 2 at standard level, 3 at higher level. These works should enlighten students to learn more about narrative, technique, or irony, or metaphor, imagery, and other literary devices. Their understanding of these devices will be assessed in the individual oral commentary. Students are given 20 minutes to prepare a passage of 40 lines, which has been taken from one of their Part 4 works. Then, they comment on the passage for 10 to 15 minutes. Although the test is assessed internally, a recording of the oral may be sent to an IB examiner for moderation. All of this may suggest that the course should be taught in sequential order, from 1 to 4. However, classwork may skip around from part to part or take a holistic approach. For example, after studying characterization in Mulk Raj Anand's Untouchable, one could explore how sympathy is created through film, such as the movie Slumdog Millionaire. Or you could also take a look at infomercials on microcredit in India. All of these texts are thematically organized around India and the language that evokes sympathy. Similarly, one could look carefully at the speeches of Martin Luther King, finding examples of the oppression that he talks about in his speech, I Have a Dream, which also are exemplified in Richard Wright's Black Boy, his memoirs, or which are seen in political cartoons. Again, these texts are organized around one central theme, civil rights, and the topics of language and power. All in all, students of the English Language and Literature course can expect an enlightening course. With sufficient dedication and curiosity, one should come away with the knowledge and skills to be successful, not just in one's exams, but also to be successful in everyday situations. If you've enjoyed this presentation, please feel free to contact me, Brad Philpott. I offer workshops and resource materials for schools, international and bilingual schools. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.